Good afternoon. My name is Michael Konstantaras. I'm a dog behavioral therapist and trainer. The name of my company is called Barkbusters. Today I'd like to give you a little general overview in dog behavior. So, show of hands, how many people here consider their dogs to be a member of their family? Okay. How many people at one time or another have referred to their dogs or look at them as being their son or their daughter? Come on. Yeah. Okay. Well, the good news is that your dogs also look at you as a member of their family, just as much as you look at them as being a member, probably more so. But the problem is they're not really looking at us as being their mom and dad. They're probably looking more at us as being their brothers and sisters, us as being their brothers and sisters rather than their mom and dad. And in a lot of cases, they actually look at us as if we're their little brothers or their little sisters, okay? And that's where the behavioral problems and where behavioral issues stem from. It's when dogs don't really know their place in the family and they consider themselves to be higher up in the hierarchy of their family, okay, or of their pack, okay? I think everybody's heard at one point or another, we all know and agree that dogs are pack animals, correct? Okay. One of the things that makes dogs great pets to me is that you can put dogs with anything, whether it's with other dogs or if you put them with people. You could put them with cats. I have a house that has a pig in it. Whatever you put dogs with, they're going to be like, great, you're officially my pack or my family, okay? Now, if I moved into your home and I didn't have to pay you any bills and you fed me every day and you loved me and maybe played with me a little bit, all my needs would basically be fulfilled and I would pretty much look at you as the head of the family. It doesn't work that way with dogs. Just providing them with love and a home and feeding them every day doesn't make us the leaders of the family, okay? So what dogs are programmed to do is figure out who is the best leader in the family. Who's going to protect us from danger? Who's going to warn us when things are coming into the den, which is your home, okay? Who's going to lead us when we're out walking? These kind of things, all right? So why do dogs think that they're above us in the family, and why aren't they looking at us as if we're the mother and the father rather than being our little brothers and sisters? Well, dogs test us just like they would test other dogs in a pack to determine who's the most suited to lead the family, okay? And they do it in some obvious ways, and they'll do it in some subtle ways that we might not even realize, okay? The obvious ways that dogs are testing where you and them stand with each other are a lot of times they'll jump up on us. Has anybody's dog here ever jumped up on their legs before or anything? Okay, yes. All right, so jumping up generally will happen when the dogs are excited, but not always, okay? But when a dog jumps up on us, or when a dog jumps up on your guests when they're coming into your home, it's really just their way of kind of showing dominance to that other thing, that other creature, okay? A dog would never go up to another dog that was a respected member of their pack and put their two paws on their back. You would know that if you saw that happening, it's really just them showing their dominance to the other dog, okay? A lot of times when we're sitting down, these cute little dogs, and it might not even bother us at all, but for you to be sitting on maybe on your couch, which might be considered like your favorite rock in a cave, okay? And for one of your lesser dogs in the pack to come over and just put their paws up on your leg, even just in a nice, friendly way, okay? A lot of times what we do then is we actually pet them, okay? So what you're doing is you're saying, come on over here. You're not even asking, they're coming on their own. I'm not saying when you invite them in. I'm just talking when you're sitting down, you're on your favorite rock there, I'm gonna walk over and put my paws on you, okay, uninvited, and then we'll typically pet them. What you're doing is you're really rewarding them for violating your personal space, okay? And when you do things like this, you're telling your dog that they're above you in the family, okay? And then you get outside and you put a restraining device, such as a leash on them, and they drag you around the neighborhood. And they're looking up you at that leash and you're trying to tell them, hey, I'm in charge here. And they're looking at you, are you kidding me? I walk all over you in the house, okay? And you reward me for doing it. So this is just one example of why dogs might feel they're above us in the family, okay? The doors are a very big deal. The entrances and the exits to I'm going to call the house, your home, the cave, okay, or the den, okay? So the entrances and exits are a very big deal to dogs. Who's answering them? when strange people or dogs are coming in the house in the order in which you pass through them, okay? A simple little test, and you know you've done this. When you go home tonight, you might want to take your leash, put it on your dog, and just walk over and put your hand on the doorknob, okay? And watch where, without telling your dog wait or without telling it stay, and certainly without holding it back, just crack it a hair. I bet you, usually about 999,000 out of 1,000,000 dogs will have their nose right there and ready to go through it. Now this is a small win that almost all dogs get because it doesn't bother us. I mean, if I went over to the door and I opened it up, as long as my dog wasn't dragging me through it, I probably wouldn't even think less about it. I wouldn't think twice about it. But if dogs go through that door and exit the cave ahead of us, again, they're leading, and that's just a small little win that if you continue to allow them to do that, they're going to think that they're above you in the family. And certainly when you go outside to walk them, if they've jumped on you in the house, if you reward them for doing it, and then go ahead of you through the door, they're probably not going to listen so great to you when you get out there on the leash, okay? So a simple little thing, like a little trick or a little training technique that you can do is, when you crack that door, just a little tiny bit, not enough to catch their face in the door, and just hold the leash by the very end so it's loose. That's kind of your safety net. I want you to just crack it, and when they're right there, close it really firmly and just make a sharp, quick sound. Maybe even say the word back. But don't say back, go back, like that. Just something quick and firm at the exact same time. So when that door closes, back, okay? And what we're looking for is your dog to back away from there, okay? Because holding them back and beating them through the door doesn't count, okay? Because I ask a lot of people when I go in and I tell them this, and like, oh, I'm always first through the door. And I say, show me. And they get over to the door and they're kicking the dogs out of the way, all right? That doesn't really count so much to the dog, okay? Try doing it like this. So you open it up just a little bit, back, quick and sharp, so it's at the same time as the door. And what we're looking from the dog is for them to back away. Crack it again, just a little bit. And if the dog is heading towards it, you want to go as soon as they start to motion, back. The goal would be, because you're only holding the leash from the very end, that when you get that door open, the dog is well back away from the door. Then you turn and face them, and you back through the door and invite them after you, okay? If you did this alone, this would completely change the way your dog's looking at you. Completely, okay? In fact, some of the most aggressive dogs I've ever seen, I can't get in the house when I get there, and I'll show this little exercise to people, okay? And when they do this little back thing that I'm telling them, and the dog's waiting back, generally I could come walk right in the house after that. So when you take control of your door, when you take control of the entrances or exits to the cave, you're taking control of your house, okay? And whoever controls that door is the one that controls the pack, okay? Now the other big thing about the doors is who's answering them, okay? I've been in thousands of homes, yours included, and you remember the first time I went there, who answered that door? Peach, exactly. And when the dog answers that door, whether it's in a friendly, excited way or in a real nasty way, it's still them answering the door, and it's still them thinking it's their house, okay? When I go see people for the first time, that's one of the first things I always do is take control of the doors. We do it with the order you pass through it, but again, I show people what to do and what to say when that's going down to let the dogs know, hey, I don't need you to either protect me from these people, and I also don't need you to screen them out to make sure they're no harm, because even if the dogs are friendly and barking, and when people come in the house and they're just jumping all over them and asking them for attention, they're doing the same thing that an aggressive dog would. They're just doing it in a friendly way, okay? They're screening out your guests to let them know that it's their house, okay, and that you better abide by their rules, okay? Does that make sense? Any questions so far? How about you people in the back? Can you hear me okay back there? Okay, this is great, good, gotcha. Some other ways that dogs test us, maybe some subtle ways, are attention-seeking behaviors, okay? A lot of times I'll walk into a new client's home and I'll notice they have a little bell hanging by the door, okay? And they've taught the dog, or they want the dog to ring that bell when they want to go outside, okay? When a dog rings a bell to go outside, when a dog scratches at the door to go outside, when a dog brings a toy over and drops it at your feet and looks at you and you play with them, if a dog knows where their food is and they go over to the cupboard and they start to bark or they whine or they stare at you until you feed them, okay? If dogs paw at us until we pet them, if they nudge us, does anybody got dogs do these things? You got a Labrador. I bet you this is some of your Labrador. Usually labs and retrievers are notorious for this kind of stuff. They right here, and they do a lot of this nudging, you know? So, I actually don't have a Mrs. Konstantaras in my life anymore because of how much I pet my dog. And I don't mean in a weird way, but he's my armrest, so he's on the couch with me, he sleeps with me. I probably pet him more than I should, again, not in a strange way, but I love him. Right. But my dog doesn't come over to me and go, hey Mike, give me some attention, okay? When I'm sitting down, he doesn't walk over and put his paws on me. Every time I go sit on the couch, my dog doesn't look at it as an opportunity to come over and get on top of me, okay? There's nothing wrong with your dog being on the couch with you, but there's everything wrong with your dog thinking that it's okay for him or her to come up and basically get on top of you. Is this making sense? You guys with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So these are the subtle ways, these attention-seeking behaviors. Okay, so certainly you want to pet and love your dog as much as possible, but if you love them, if you feed them, if you play with them, if you become your dog's doorman or doorwoman by always letting them out when they ask, or if they bark and scratch and you let them in, you're telling your dog that you're the decision maker, okay? And when you tell your dog they're the decision maker, that's where some of these behavioral issues stem from, okay? And the behavioral issues I'm talking about can be things such as aggression, okay? They could be a lot of annoying, unnecessary barking, okay? They can be separation problems. I'm sure you've all heard of dogs that have separation anxiety, and I hope none of you have to experience that because those are some of the worst things ever, okay? But like when dogs feel that they're in charge, okay, of the family, and it's their job to protect the family and lead them and guide them, in their world, the lesser dogs would never leave the cave without them, okay? So there's a lot of factors that can play into a dog having separation problems, but the root of it most often is that when they feel that they're kind of leader of the family, and it's their job to lead and protect and guide them, when the little dogs leave the den, it's, oh my God, how are you ever going to make it without me? And they get really nervous, and that's when dogs have these separation problems, okay? Because in the dog's world, the lesser dogs would never leave the cave without the higher ups. Does that make sense? Okay? So having good leadership with your dogs helps it with all different kinds of areas, okay? And another one would be the leash itself, okay? Now, there's a lot of tools out there that you can find in pet stores. They have these prong collars, they have shock collars, none of which I use, okay? But these are just things really kind of masking the root problem. I don't think they work in a lot of cases. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when you put a dog on a leash, you're really entering into a contract with them. You're telling them, look, I'm taking away your ability to run, okay? And you've experienced this firsthand, okay? And if they're not looking up that leash at someone that they look at as a higher up or as somebody that they can trust and look at them as their guide or their leader, when you get them out in the world, depending on the dog and their history, sometimes they get very leash reactive to other dogs. Sometimes they lunge and bark, depending, they might have been bullied by a dog at one time or another in their life. So when they see dogs, they have to act out and look as mean and nasty as possible because they don't trust whoever's holding that leash to protect them. Okay, is this making sense? Okay, also, a lot of times people tell me that even without being dog reactive, right, but even people, if they're coming in to say hello, or if you're just out walking and a neighbor comes over to say hello to you, the dog starts lunging and growling and looking really nasty. Again, this is when the dog doesn't trust who's holding that leash, okay? Because when you're holding that leash and someone's coming, look when I walk into your space, it's kind of like, hey, get away from me, right? It's a violation of your personal space. And that's how the dog's looking at it. So that's why they lunge out and try and look as mean and nasty so they don't get hurt. Okay? Is this making sense? Anybody have any questions? Please, give me something. Anybody in the back?
So the dog's trying to protect himself or is trying to protect you?
It could be
Either.
depends on the situation. But yes, what you really want to have you do, I always tell people that I am my dog's protector. Okay, you want your dog to protect you when you need them to. Okay, and I could never take the natural guard instincts out of a dog. Okay, but what happens is when we give dogs this leadership role, yes, sometimes they do take it upon themselves to protect us, but they're protecting us from nothing most of the time. The cable guy, the mailman, a friend coming over to greet you, okay? So what you're doing is, by allowing these other things to happen in the den, okay, rewarding them for jumping on you, going through the doors ahead of you, answering the doors, these types of things, giving in to their requests for attention, to be fed, to be played with, to be loved, okay? You put them in this kind of top role, so you're like inadvertently put them in this guard role, okay? So they make the decision then who's dangerous and who's not. When I walk in houses and the dogs are snarling and looking at me like I'm like a member of ISIS coming in to hurt their family, I always ask them, I'm like, what's with your dog? And they're like, well, he's protecting me. And I'm like, well, from what? I mean, you're really showing no signs of distress or fear at all. I mean, I could understand if you were like, oh my God, who's this person coming in? And if that were to happen, your dog would know what to do, okay? But what I want people to have their dogs look at them at is their protector. So that way when people are coming in the home, no matter who they are, no matter what age, color, size, kids, whatever, you want the dogs to be more feeding off of you rather than making that decision on their own. What you do is you're really putting that decision in the brain of an animal that really is equivalent to like a 3 to 5 year old child. Okay? Yes.
So I have a lab as well. She's about 3.
A she? And I don't mean to cut you. You have a she?
Yes.
Okay. Before you go any further, I just want to make one little note, and this is a compliment to all the women in the room. The female always leads the pack with the dogs in the dog world. It's very much the same as in the human world. Yes. So by gender alone, you might have a leader, but go ahead. All right.
Well, I have 2. The older one doesn't really care. She just kind of lays there. But my younger one, she's about 3. And she's very reactive at the door. She's a bit of a leaper, so she'll jump like at the door waiting for people to come in. Sometimes she's a little growly. Once people are inside, she's fine. But and then she does this thing like if she gets super excited or if she's a little nervous. So you might have seen it. She pees.
Yeah.
She gets we call it happy sprinkle.
Like a little nervous tinkle.
Yeah. Is there any way to help them with that, to have her not do that, or?
Yeah, a lot of dogs do that. I would probably look to correct the behavior before that happens.
Yeah.
You know, all that lunging and barking.
Yeah.
That's something that would be hard to explain here, okay, but I'm sure it's not for lack of trying.
Next time we do this, I'll bring her.
Yeah. Well, when the door rings, the dog is going to the door, right?
Before they even get to the door, she's
ready.
There. Like you can see her head out the window. She's just like waiting for them to come up the stairs.
Right. And again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, the entrances and exits to the den. Who's answering them and the order in which you go through them. So she's answering the door, okay? What you need to do is let her know that you don't need her to answer your door anymore. And I'm sure you're trying. What's her name, the dog? Kylie. You know, if you get, and when she's there, Kylie, down, sit, back, off, leave it. You know, all the stuff we say. But you're doing it in our language, and I bet she does know how to sit, okay, and she probably would stay at some points, okay? But all that seems to go out the window when they're adrenalized and they're at the door. That's where communicating to them more in their language will come into play, and that's what I really teach people is, there's 3 general ways to work with dogs from a training approach, okay? One would be using food. Okay, so the treat training approach, I don't do that, but well, but try it.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it'll work, but you might want to try it. That would mean that when someone's at the door, the lesser dog, because remember, if you're not doing all these other things, she's not perceiving you as the leader, If you're over there with a little biscuit saying, come on over here and sit, I don't know if you're going to win that battle.
That's also kind of rewarding for doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm not so sure, and even once they get the treat, that they'll probably go back. Okay? So I don't do that. The other approach would be to do something more physical, where people use shock collars and choke collars and maybe kicking her out of the door. I don't know. I don't do that either. Okay? What I teach my clients is how to communicate more like a higher up dog would to a lesser dog. Okay? If that were your dog, that were your door, and another dog was there, if you wanted to claim that space, like a dog, you would go, ah! And you would snap at them, and that dog would say, whoa. Kind of like a dog protecting a bowl of food, you know? If you were coming over near me, and I had a bowl, and I was eating, and I'm a dog, you probably wouldn't even get near me. I would puff up my body, I would make a sharp sound, and I would snap at you, okay? What I do is I teach people to kind of mimic this behavior where you're really focusing a lot on your body language, what that says. I don't really teach many commands other than stay and come, okay? What I teach is to use more of a sharp guttural tone, so that kind of snaps dogs out of this behavior. So you're not telling them to do something like sit, stay, down, off, leave it. You're making more of a sound like a big dog would, okay? And then I have tools that will mimic the way a dog would snap, okay? So you're not actually having to snap your teeth at a dog, but I do have tools, and none of them are harmful. And this is never meant to hurt or scare the dog, as you know. It's actually a much more peaceful existence for the dog when they don't have to do all these things, when they don't have to guard, when they don't have to protect us unnecessarily. It really is a dog's life when you do that. Yes?
I have a question. My dog does the same thing.
Yeah.
She jumps up. I mean, he jumps up. He's all friendly and everything. But when I get to the door,
Yes.
and I say, Riley, back,
Mm-hmm.
he jumps down and he backs up and he sits.
Good.
And he waits for me to open the door. Is that okay?
It's not.
Even though he goes first?
It's not okay. No, it's whatever's good. What I would do,
Yeah.
if I were to help you, would be to eliminate that first part. Okay.
Not have him run to the door at all. When
Not be
you're
there.
gone.
Now, when your guest, if he's going back though, that's good.
Yeah.
Certainly, that you're able to have that control of him. Now, when he's back, and your guests come in the house and they go, "Oh my God, look at him! How beautiful!" Does he stay back?
Depends. No, probably not. He might get up and start
Okay.
smelling them or something.
That's good.
And I'll say, sit or
Sounds like,
whatever.
sure, that's okay.
Yeah.
Listen, whatever works, and this isn't an exact science.
No, but I just meant
But,
because they both go to the door first.
yeah.
Is that bad? That's what I guess I was trying to
I don't think
find
it's
out.
necessarily bad. I think it would be bad that if you're like trying to get the door
No,
open,
no.
and when the people come in, that they're jumping all over them and barking and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
well, actually, 'cause I have to hold her back sometimes because she'll just keep calling the door.
Yeah.
And she's not a mean dog. She
No,
never
no,
fights
no.
anybody.
Have
She's
these things
just,
there.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like I don't know, like the pizza guy, even my sister's
Yeah.
friends that come over.
Yeah.
She'll get kind of like, "Arr," and then when the door's open, and then she'll start to whine. And it's not, and it's not like an aggressive thing.
Sure.
And I know that, but it scares everybody else.
Yeah. They're just, again, you have probably a very sweet dog,
Yeah.
and they're just putting up that little front. Again, it's just them doing what they think is their job, which is to kind of say, hey, you're coming in my place. I better look mean and nasty. Once they come in and they don't do anything, and maybe they might jump on them a little, or they love them when they're asking, they're like, oh, okay, you're no harm. I can go over here.
Yeah.
What I try and do is take that entire process out of the dog's hands, so they're not screening out your guests.
Yeah.
Okay? I could, again, have about 100 people come into my home, all different sizes. Look, I'm not saying my dog is just sitting like, but he'll come over and say hello, but it's not, when he hears the door, he goes charging to it, he's barking, he's going crazy.
If she hears a door shut outside,
Yeah.
she's immediately like, what's going on?
Yeah, and think about living like that, like thinking that you have to be so alert to all these noises all the time and always kind of be watching out for stuff. It's a lot of extra work that they really don't need to be doing. And again, what I would do with people, like in cases like that, is set these scenes up, go outside, make some noise, tap on the windows, do these kinds of things, and then I would teach the client what to do, what to say when they perk up, to let them know that, hey, when I'm home, let me be the one who decides what's dangerous and what's not. I'll be the one that reacts to noise and stuff. It's really a much more peaceful life for your dog.
And it's interesting because it's just the house. Like, in the car, she's fine. Like, we've gotten to the point now where I'll tell her to wait, and she will wait for me to open the car door, and then she will wait for me to release her to jump out of the car. On the leash, she's fine. She can get a little touchy with, like, if they get into other dogs get into her space. Like, she'll be fine to begin with. Some dogs she's okay, and some dogs she reacts to. But it's really just the front door, and she's a bit of a barker in the house. But it's really just the front door that's probably her biggest thing.
Yeah.
And
again, it's in the cave, in the home base too. You know, probably just protecting the den a little bit. But and you probably, it sounds like you have a really good control of her in a lot of ways. Okay, it's just that maybe for those one or two the big ones, she's kind of like, step aside. You know?
So she feels like she needs to handle the door, and I'm aware of that too. So I've actually taken to now, like when I know someone, if I see somebody coming and she sees them too, I'm like, Kai, let's go, and she'll go out into the backyard. But she's still reacting at the gate, like she's like jumping at the gate because she knows they're there. And then and I think at that point she's like, wait, what am I missing? There's something going on that I don't see.
Yeah.
So it's really, she's really just a door hog, I guess would be the right word. She just wants to be
so
at the door.
social, you know,
They really are.
Yeah, and look, this certainly isn't a military approach or anything like that. My dog has a personality, and he certainly gets away with a lot of things that maybe in the dog world he shouldn't, you know. But when it comes down to it, though, when the real big stuff is going down, he really does look at me. It's almost like parenting children, you know. I mean, I don't think anybody wants the kid who's just constant, no personality, you know. And I think we've seen kids like that, you know. Usually we see kids the opposite way, which is like dogs. This is really like parenting, okay? Kids and dogs, they have 4 core needs that are very similar. They need good food, okay? If you're out there, and anybody in the back here, if you're giving your dogs like stuff from the grocery store, it's typically a bag of corn and fillers, okay? It's not healthy for them, but what you're really doing is you're overloading your dog with a bunch of sugary carbohydrates, starchy carbs, and they get converted to sugars, and it makes dogs batty, okay? If you go, next time you're in Stop and Shop, just turn around a bag of puppy chow or Alpo or Kibbles and Bits and look at the ingredients. And it really is, it's like giving your dogs methamphetamine. It's just nothing, it's doing them no good for their health, and it's giving them a lot of highs and lows with these, just like with kids. I have a friend who's a child psychologist in the school system up in Trumbull, and we were talking about this, and she's like, wow, when we have hyperactive children or kids with AD&D, we do go to the diet right away too and see what they're feeding their children, okay, because it does have a big effect on behaviors in addition to their health, okay? So the core needs, they need good food, so you want to make sure you're giving your dogs an adequate diet, okay, a good diet. They need a nice home, obviously, where most of us are providing our dogs with a good home, obviously, but sometimes if they're destructive in the home, it's good for them to have their own little home within the home, which would be a crate, okay? They need to be entertained to a certain extent. Dogs do, just like children. They need something to do. I have plenty of people that say, Mike, I don't understand why my dog tears the house up. I'm like, well, what's your life like? Well, I go to work every morning at about 6 a.m. and I go to New York City and I put my dog in the crate, and then a dog walker comes in. I have a dog walker that comes in for 15 minutes and walks them at lunch, and then I get home at about 7 o'clock at night and I let him out of the crate, and then I put him back in the crate again when I go to bed at around 10:30. So the dog is, out of a 24-hour day, they're spending about 2/3 of it or more in a crate. And then they wonder why these things are going bananas when they're outside of the crate. So the last thing that dogs and children need, you need good food, you need to be entertained to a certain extent, need a nice home, but they need leadership, just like kids. They need us to guide them. They need to look at us as their protectors, okay? If your 5-year-old kid thought that they were your boss and had to protect, think of how bizarre that would be. Really, any child, you know, less than, you know, the young adult age, you really want them to look at their mom and dad as the decision maker, as their protector. You want them to feel safe around your parents. Same thing with dogs. The difference between dogs and kids, though, is that kids will eventually mature and grow up and hopefully move out of the house. Some of them takes a little bit longer than others, but your dogs never will. Okay, so you can guide and educate and train your dogs to live a certain way with you, but they're always going to need your guidance. They're always going to need to look at you as their protector and not the other way around. Okay? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything? Or you folks okay? I know I'm hitting that joke too much, but all right. Yeah.
I think,
Yes, sir.
through working with you, we've made a lot of progress with the door. I think that was like, for us, that was the first 20 minutes, I think.
Yes,
something
sir.
That we addressed and was able to do a lot of work with her now that she knows when she knocks on the door, she usually comes to us. One thing I noticed is that we both work during the day, so we do have a dog walker that comes
Yes.
not regularly, maybe once every few weeks. And we have a webcam in the apartment, and
Yes.
I see when the dog walker comes in. We're not there to correct her, and she is a different dog. She's barking out of control because there's somebody different coming through the door.
Yeah, and I almost think that that's would be what you want. That's a hard thing. Again, all dogs are different in how they would respond to things. But if I wasn't home and somebody was coming in the den, and they recognized it wasn't me necessarily, they probably would be a little protective of it. Is she overly, does she settle down once the girl comes in?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, it's honestly been just once or twice that we've even had her
Oh,
there.
okay,
So
yeah.
maybe she'll get used to this person coming more regularly,
Yeah.
and we'll settle into it. But it's just something I noticed that, not that it's positive or negative, it was just an observation.
Yeah, and again, I think that when the big dogs are away from the cave, and because sometimes the higher ups, they go to look for some food, maybe go find another dog outside of their gene pool, whatever they're doing, but the dogs would protect the den. So when in the absence of mom or dad, if they're home, I think you would want your dog to kind of, hey, who's coming in the house? Having a dog sit completely mute when we're not home, I don't know if that would be such a great thing, But again, all dogs are different, okay? One thing like with you, though, that I wanted to mention, adoption's at an all-time high, which is great. I was actually at an event last night, and there was tons of people there, and it's really awesome that people are adopting dogs now rather than buying them from the pet stores, okay? The thing when we adopt dogs, though, is that we never really know. They might tell you, I can't tell you how many times, well, he's from Georgia, he's from Mississippi, he's from the South. It's always really the same old thing, but you never really know a dog's complete history, okay? So it's very similar to adopting a child at maybe like, say, 8, 9, 10 years old and not knowing what type of parenting they've had up until that age. And think about it, if you're getting a dog from a child from like a foster home or adopting them at a little bit older age, chances are they haven't had the best parenting through that early part of their life, okay? So you really are taking in, it's almost like picking up a person from prison and not knowing what they were in prison for, and you're bringing them into your home, okay? So inheriting someone else's mistakes can be challenging, okay, rather than starting from scratch. The good thing about dogs, one of the good things about dogs is that unlike us, they're a lot easier to change. They're a lot more open to change. Okay, I've seen dogs that have scars all over. I worked with one not too long ago. I think it's a client that's from here, has an ear burned off and acid burns down its back.
I was here when the dog came in.
Yeah, and what a sweetheart of a dog, Dogs that have been, severely abused, they'll give in. I mean, children that have been severely abused, they'll probably carry that through their whole life. And dogs certainly will have some emotional scars and physical scars that they'll carry with them. But it is a lot easier, or they're a lot easier to let go of these things and move on when they're given a new way. Something like you, though, I would bet my life, you have a dog that's very reactive when she's on leash to other dogs, okay? And what I'm seeing in that case, though, is something more traumatic. It's not so much that, hey, I just want to go say hello to dogs, or even just a little barky. She goes into this red zone that's like, I have to protect myself because I am not going down that. And it's so funny. It's not funny, but she's this cutest, small, little, tiny, adorable dog. She's so adorable and such a sweetheart. And I'm sure you do too, feel so terrible for her when she's in this predicament, because it looks like, like her life is on the line. And to her it is, so things like that can be challenging, as we both know, but they can be worked through. Some of them, though, you have to manage around certain behaviors. I don't think you could ever it's not always going to be a perfect science where you can get things exactly how we want them to be. But I think with proper guidance, you can really work around almost any behavior and get them. Any other questions or anything?
Even jumping on the counters?
Jumping on the counters. Okay, that's a good question, or a behavior that's very common. Okay. Best way to explain this would be that they really don't respect your personal space. When dogs jump up on our counters and take food, when we're eating at the table and they think it's okay to come over, and if you're not paying attention, they'll grab the sandwich out of your hand and stuff like that. Again, it's just it's a complete lack of...
She did it to my sister. She would never do it to me, but she did it to my sister when she was big.
I had somebody told me not too long ago that the dog ate an entire roast that they had on the counter like it was for a holiday thing or something.
Yeah. He was going to his, they weren't married yet. They were, maybe it was their first day that they were married, but he brought the dog to their house for Christmas. Yeah. And normally Delta was awesome. She would never do it, but she went into the kitchen and ate the entire pot roast off the table, and then just came back into the room like nothing had happened, and they went back in, and they're like, what happened in here?
You must see that a lot, I think, of dogs of eating things that they, and not only sometimes is it an inconvenience and really bad, but sometimes dogs get a hold of stuff that they can't eat. It's dangerous.
Dangerous.
So not only just from a pain in the butt thing, it's for their safety too that they shouldn't go up on the tables and stuff. If we were the big dogs, let's call it in the cave again, okay? The lesser dogs will know not to go near certain dogs' areas, okay? Like I've been in plenty of homes where they have 4, 5, 6 dogs, and I'll watch if there's like a little bed over in the corner, how like most of the dogs won't even go near it. It's funny. They'll have they'll give it a good, even without a dog being there. And I'll be like, whose bed is that? Like, oh, it's hers. It's always a her, by the way. And what she's done is she's claimed that space as hers. And the other dogs know not to go near her stuff. Okay, so she's the leader in all these other ways. Remember, you can't do just one little thing. You have to kind of go by all these principles. But if you don't want if you want to let your dog know, hey, that's my space. This is my bed. This is my little rock here, whatever, like your tables, your coffee tables and stuff. What you need to do is set them up by putting something on the table, like a piece of cheese or something really smelly that's going to draw them to it, and then let them in the room. And as they're on their way to it, that's where what I would teach, this correction would be you come in with your body, you claim it before they get it, okay? I can't give all my tricks on film, but that's what I would teach, is how to let a dog know that, hey, I'm claiming your space. You're claiming your personal space, you're claiming your doors, you're claiming your home, claim your tables, and when you do you're just basically flipping the tables on what dogs do, okay? Dogs claim things. Right. That's what they do, and we're just doing the exact same thing, just in reverse, okay? Anything else? I think we're good for now. Okay, well, thank you all for coming out today.